Welcome, gents. Power is not always in what you say, but in what you choose not to. Have you ever noticed how silence can shake people more than words ever could? There's something haunting about being ignored by someone who used to care. It creates a quiet tension that no argument can dissolve. For Sigma males, this isn't about pride or revenge. It's about choosing peace over chaos and control over reaction. When they ignore, they don't do it to prove superiority. They do it to protect their energy and peace of mind. They understand that reacting gives power away while silence reclaims it. And that's what confuses people the most. They expect confrontation, but what they get is stillness that speaks louder than anger ever could. If you've ever been misunderstood, betrayed, or drained by constant conflict, this message is for you. Sometimes the strongest response is no response at all. Stay until the end, because what you're about to discover will change how you handle disrespect, manipulation, and emotional games forever. You'll see why silence, when used with purpose, doesn't just protect you. It haunts those who took your peace for granted. Let's get started, gents. Number 1. Confrontation satisfies the ego, not the mission. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to get pulled into arguments that go nowhere? You start with the intention of making your point, but before you know it, it turns into a contest of who can talk louder or hit harder with words. Most people think that winning an argument means they've won the battle, but in truth, it often means they've lost control of themselves. That's where Sigma males think differently. They understand that confrontation usually feeds the ego, not the mission. When you argue, you're trying to prove something, to be seen, to be right, to have the last word. But for a Sigma male, peace is far more valuable than proving a point. He has learned that silence can be stronger than any clever comeback. His quietness isn't weakness, it's discipline. It's knowing that not every attack deserves a response, and not every misunderstanding needs to be cleared up. Think about it. When someone provokes you, they're looking for a reaction. They want to feel your energy. They want to know they've gotten under your skin. But when you remain calm and say nothing, it unsettles them. They start questioning their own actions. They wonder what's going on in your mind. That mystery becomes more powerful than any verbal defense you could give. Sigma males live by this truth in everyday life. Whether it's in relationships, workplaces, or friendships, they don't chase arguments. If someone tries to insult or belittle them, they respond with quiet detachment. They don't need to correct lies or justify their choices. They simply let time reveal the truth. Silence, in their world, is not avoidance. It's control. It's the art of choosing inner calm over outer chaos. By refusing to fight every battle, they conserve their strength for what truly matters. Because in the end, you don't prove your worth by shouting louder than others. You prove it by staying silent when noise is expected, and peaceful when the world demands a reaction. That's real power. The kind that doesn't need to be seen to be felt. Number 2. People remember the ones who disappear without noise. There's something unforgettable about the ones who leave without a sound. No explanations, no emotional scenes, just quiet disappearance. You think you'll hear from them again, but days turn into weeks, and all you're left with is their silence echoing in your mind. That's what makes it powerful. People remember the ones who simply walk away instead of fighting for attention. When someone leaves quietly, it unsettles you. You replay every conversation, searching for clues. You wonder what pushed them to that point. You realize too late that their silence wasn't a sign of weakness. It was their final statement. Sigma males understand this deeply. They don't make a scene when something ends. They don't announce they're done. They just stop showing up. And that absence says more than any argument could. Think about it. When a friend suddenly stops texting, when someone you took for granted withdraws completely, it hits harder than an angry goodbye. The mind hates unfinished stories. It keeps trying to fill in the blanks. That's what haunts people, the unanswered questions, the quiet finality. Sigma males use silence as a form of closure that doesn't need words. They don't leave to hurt others, they leave to protect their peace. Once they realize their presence is being undervalued, or their effort misunderstood, they know the most powerful thing they can do is exit without noise. This kind of disappearance carries a weight that arguments never could. It leaves others wondering, did I push too far? Did I lose something good? That's the haunting part. It's not anger that stays with people, it's absence, and that's why the quiet exit is remembered the longest. Because silence, when it's final, becomes a voice that never stops speaking. It turns into a lesson that echoes long after the person is gone, reminding everyone that sometimes the loudest goodbye is the one you never hear. Number 3. Ignoring rewrites the power dynamic. Ignoring someone can be far more powerful than 1,000 arguments. It changes the balance immediately. The moment you stop reacting, everything shifts. Suddenly, the person who once had your attention begins to wonder what went wrong. They start questioning their own value because you no longer feed their need for control or recognition. That is what makes silence such a powerful move. It rewrites the entire power dynamic without a single word being spoken. Think about how most people handle conflict. They argue, explain, defend, and plead to be understood. They throw energy into trying to fix something that may already be broken. But when a Sigma male chooses to ignore instead, he refuses to play that game. He removes his attention, and that's what truly stings. The person on the other side suddenly feels the weight of their own behavior. They realize they no longer have access to his mind or emotions, and that loss hits deeper than any confrontation could. It's like being used to hearing a song every morning, and one day it just stops playing. You keep waiting for it, but the silence reminds you that something valuable is gone. That's what ignoring does. It makes absence louder than presence. In everyday life, this can happen in friendships, relationships, or even workplaces. When someone crosses a line or keeps testing boundaries, the Sigma male doesn't waste time arguing. He simply withdraws his attention. And that absence leaves the other person replaying moments, searching for reasons, wondering how they lost access to someone so centered and composed. Ignoring is not arrogance, it's awareness. It's the ability to recognize that sometimes silence teaches a lesson better than words ever could. When a Sigma male walks away without anger or an explanation, he reclaims control. He sends a silent message that says, "My peace matters more than your approval." That message lingers. It stays in people's minds long after he's gone, reminding them that the quietest person in the room often holds the most power. Number 4. Distance is the loudest message. Distance has a language of its own. It speaks without sound, yet it delivers messages that words could never carry. When someone pulls away quietly, it creates a space that cannot be filled with excuses or explanations. That space becomes a mirror, forcing the other person to face what they did and what they lost. And that's what makes distance so powerful. It says everything without saying anything at all. Think about a moment when someone you cared about suddenly stopped responding. No argument, no goodbye, just distance. At first, you might shrug it off, but as the silence grows, your mind starts to wander. You begin to ask questions you never thought you would. Did I do something wrong? Why does this feel heavier than words? That is how distance works. It turns calm silence into emotional noise that echoes endlessly in your head. Sigma males understand this better than most. When they walk away, it's never out of spite. It's a calm decision made after realizing that words will no longer fix what has been broken. They know that explanations can be twisted, but silence cannot be misinterpreted. It lingers, and that lingering silence has a way of haunting the people who took their presence for granted. In everyday life, this shows up in subtle ways. A friend stops showing up after too many broken promises. A partner stops explaining themselves after being misunderstood repeatedly. A colleague decides to stop engaging in endless drama. These quiet exits often speak louder than confrontations ever could. Distance forces reflection. It gives people room to feel the loss, to think about what went wrong, and to understand what silence really means. And that's why it's unforgettable, because while words fade and arguments blur, silence stays. It keeps knocking on the mind of those who ignored it, whispering the same truth over and over again. Sometimes the loudest message is the one wrapped in distance. Number 5. He lets time do the talking. Time has a way of revealing everything. You don't always have to explain, defend, or prove your worth to anyone. Sometimes the most powerful move is to step back, stay silent, and let time speak on your behalf. That's something Sigma males understand better than most. They know that patience can do what confrontation never could. While others rush to justify themselves, they allow silence to build its own story, one that becomes impossible to ignore over time. Think about how often people overlook someone until they see the results of their absence. Maybe it's a colleague who was never appreciated until the team started struggling without him, or a friend who quietly disappeared, and only later did people realize how much calm he brought into their lives. That's what time does. It strips away illusions and exposes truths that words could never express. When a Sigma male walks away, he doesn't chase recognition. He knows that silence now will echo later when the people who underestimated him finally see the difference he made. Time has a way of turning absence into a teacher. Those who took him for granted begin to replay their choices, slowly understanding the weight of what they lost. This patience isn't about revenge, it's about trust. He trusts that life always circles back with lessons for everyone. Instead of trying to force people to see his value, he focuses on growth, success, and peace. And while he's building silently, those who doubted him are left to watch his progress unfold from afar. Time for him is the ultimate equalizer. It doesn't rush, but it never fails to reveal what was hidden. When the dust settles and the noise fades, silence becomes proof, and results become the response. And by then, those who once underestimated him are left with nothing but realization. He never needed to prove them wrong, because time did it for him. Number 6. His silence becomes their punishment. There's a kind of silence that doesn't just end conversations, it ends illusions. When a Sigma male chooses silence, it's not a retreat, it's a verdict. While others expect arguments, explanations, or even anger, he gives them something they can't control: distance. And that distance slowly turns into a ghost that follows them everywhere, whispering one truth they can't ignore. You are not worth his time. This silence is not meant to hurt, but it does. Because people expect noise after they've crossed a line. They expect emotion, tears, or shouting. What they don't expect is indifference. That's what makes it sting. It's the realization that the person they once triggered no longer reacts. The connection they once relied on is gone, and all that's left is the quiet proof that they no longer matter. In everyday life, this hits hardest in relationships. Think of someone who constantly tested your patience, expecting you to always come back. But one day, you stop responding, you stop explaining, you stop trying. That's when they feel the silence. It creeps into their thoughts at night, and reminds them of every moment they took for granted. Sigma males understand that words often soften the truth. Silence, however, delivers it raw. It doesn't allow denial or excuses. It forces people to face themselves. When he withdraws completely, his absence says everything that words never could. It becomes a silent punishment, not out of cruelty, but from a deep understanding that peace is worth more than proving a point. And the haunting part? That silence doesn't fade. It stays long after he's gone. It lingers in the spaces he used to fill, in the messages left unread, and in the memories that replay again and again. Because once a Sigma male decides you're not worth his time, his silence becomes a mirror that never stops reflecting that truth. Number 7. He understands that energy is currency. He understands that energy is one of the most valuable things a person owns. You can get back money, time, or even opportunities. But once energy is wasted, it never returns the same way. That's why Sigma males treat their attention like currency. Every thought, every emotion, every reaction is an investment, and they refuse to spend it where the return is nothing but exhaustion. In a world where people react to everything, they do the opposite. They pause. They calculate. They ask themselves, is this worth my energy? Most of the time, the answer is no. Arguing with someone who refuses to understand, explaining yourself to people who only want to twist your words, or trying to fix what was never yours to fix. All of that drains life from the soul. Sigma males learned that peace comes from selective engagement. Think about it like this. If you had only a limited amount of money to spend each day, would you waste it on things that bring no value? Probably not. Yet many people waste their emotional energy that way, feeding negativity, chasing validation, or reacting to provocation. Sigma males see through that trap. They know every reaction has a cost, and they only pay when the outcome is growth, peace, or clarity. This discipline changes everything. They no longer fight battles that don't matter, or chase people who drain them. Instead, they pour their energy into what multiplies: goals, purpose, self-mastery, and meaningful connections. And that's why their presence feels grounded. Their calm is not luck. It's earned through years of learning where to spend their inner resources. Energy to them is sacred. Once it's gone, so is focus, patience, and peace. So they guard it carefully, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Because a Sigma male knows that the real measure of power is not how much he reacts, but how much he reserves for what truly matters. Number 8. Ignoring teaches lessons no argument can deliver. Ignoring someone doesn't always come from anger. Sometimes it's the most powerful form of teaching there is. When a Sigma male chooses silence, he's not trying to win or prove anything. He's letting reality do the teaching. Arguments can be debated, twisted, or forgotten. But silence, that stays. It becomes a mirror that reflects back everything the other person refused to see. When he pulls away, he creates a void, a space that suddenly feels too quiet, too heavy. At first, people dismiss it, thinking he'll return or explain himself. But as time passes, the silence begins to sting. That's when the lesson begins. The absence starts to speak. It whispers truths that words could never deliver. It humbles arrogance and exposes patterns that once went unchecked. Think about it in everyday life. Maybe it's a friend who keeps taking without giving, or someone who keeps pushing boundaries, expecting endless forgiveness. When the Sigma male finally stops responding, that silence becomes unforgettable. The person starts to see themselves clearly, maybe for the first time. They realize the damage they caused, the moments they wasted, and the connection they destroyed. Ignoring in this sense isn't cruelty, it's clarity. It's the Sigma male saying, without words, I will no longer participate in my own disrespect. He steps back and lets time and reflection do the rest. And the result? The silence turns into an invisible teacher, one that doesn't shout but still changes everything. The power of being ignored lies in its simplicity. It strips away excuses, pride, and noise, leaving only truth behind. That void becomes a classroom for growth, humility, and regret. And for those who experience it, the lesson stays long after he's gone, because nothing educates the soul more than the sound of someone's silence after you've taken their presence for granted. Number 9. He understands attention is a reward. He understands that attention is not something to be given freely. It is a reward, a form of acknowledgement that carries value. The moment he gives someone his focus, he is giving them access to his time, his energy, and his emotional space. So when a Sigma male decides to withdraw that attention, it is never accidental. It is intentional. And that quiet shift hits harder than any confrontation could. People often underestimate the power of attention. They crave it, depend on it, and sometimes even manipulate others just to keep it. When someone stops giving them that steady flow of focus, it feels like the ground has been pulled from under their feet. The silence becomes loud. The absence becomes uncomfortable. They begin to feel smaller, less significant, and that realization hurts more than words ever could. Imagine a friend who constantly seeks validation, always needing to be the center of your thoughts. As long as you keep responding, they feel in control. But the moment you stop engaging, no arguments, no cold attitude, just quiet withdrawal, they start to panic. They question what changed. They try to provoke a reaction, but none comes. That's when the lesson begins. Sigma males use this understanding wisely. They don't waste time arguing or explaining their distance. They simply redirect their attention to where it matters, to growth, peace, and purpose. By doing so, they reclaim their power. Their silence becomes a statement that says, "My attention was never yours to take for granted." In everyday life, this approach transforms relationships, friendships, and even workplace dynamics. When a Sigma male withdraws attention, people start realizing the value of what they once had. It teaches them that being noticed by someone grounded and self-contained was never a right. It was a privilege. And when that privilege disappears, the emptiness it leaves behind speaks volumes. Number 10. He understands indifference hurts more than anger. He understands something most people overlook. Anger still carries emotion. When someone gets angry, it means they still care enough to react. There's still a thread connecting them to the situation. But indifference, that's a different kind of message. It says, "I'm done feeling anything about this." And that emotional detachment cuts deeper than any words spoken in anger ever could. When a Sigma male reaches the point of indifference, it's not sudden. It's the result of realizing that some situations are no longer worth his energy. He stops trying to explain. He stops defending himself. He no longer seeks understanding. That quiet emotional withdrawal is what unsettles people the most. It feels colder than anger, more final than goodbye. Think about a time when someone stopped reacting to you completely. Maybe it was after repeated arguments or constant disappointment. At first, the silence feels confusing. Then it starts to sting. Because as long as they were angry, you still mattered. But once they stopped caring, you disappeared from their emotional world entirely. That's what indifference does. It erases you without a sound. Sigma males understand that real strength lies in emotional control. They don't waste time trying to fix what refuses to change. Instead, they let go. Their calmness isn't cruelty, it's clarity. It's the understanding that peace is worth more than the temporary satisfaction of being heard. Indifference hurts because it leaves no room for negotiation. You can argue with anger, but you cannot argue with silence. You can apologize to someone who shouts, but not to someone who has already emotionally checked out. That's why it cuts so deep. When a Sigma male becomes indifferent, it signals that he has truly moved on. And for those who took his care for granted, that realization is a wound that time doesn't heal easily. In final words, sometimes silence is not weakness. It's strategy, it's wisdom, it's peace choosing itself. Have you ever wondered why silence unsettles people more than words ever could? It's because silence leaves space for truth. When a Sigma male chooses not to respond, not to explain, not to fight back, he's doing something that most people can't. He's mastering restraint. He knows that confrontation might win the moment, but silence wins the lesson. Ignoring people doesn't mean he stops caring about life or humanity. It means he values his energy enough to stop pouring it into chaos. He lets distance speak, and he lets time do the talking. While others are busy reacting, he's preserving his peace and letting silence carry the message they won't forget. And that's the secret. People remember silence because it gives them nothing to fight against, only themselves. In a world that constantly pushes for attention and reaction, mastering silence is real strength. It's proof that you don't need to shout to be heard. You just need to know when to walk away quietly and let your peace echo louder than anger. So if you've ever felt drained from endless arguments or emotional games, take a deep breath. You don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing calm over conflict. Stay until the end, because this truth will remind you that silence isn't the end of your power, it's the beginning of it. Thank you for watching, and God bless you.